You never know how much you're alive until you face death.
The footage you are about to see are taken from some of the worst prisons in the world, from a Rwandan prison where inmates feed on the flesh of other prisoners just to survive, to the infamous ADX Florence, where inmates are kept in a concrete hole with no windows for 23 hours a day. These prisons leave their inmates begging for death. Join us as we unveil 9 prisons that are worse than death, starting with Bang Kwang Central Prison, Thailand. They call it the Big Tiger, a prison that devours anyone who enters it. Located on the outskirts of Bangkok, Thailand, the Bang Kwang Central Prison is home to some of the worst offenders in the city. Killers awaiting their execution and convicted felons serving life sentences. All are locked away in this hell on earth. Since it was completed in the early 1930s, the prison has become known as one of the harshest prisons in the world. Inmates who find themselves here never remain the same, even if they eventually get released. For the first 3 months of their incarceration, these criminals are chained with leg irons like slaves. But not only are their motions restricted, their mental state also deteriorates with each passing day. As for inmates on death row, these shackles are welded on permanently until their execution. Imagine walking around a prison block with a pair of chains weighing 33 pounds every single day. Thankfully, the use of this cruel punishment was outlawed in 2013, both for death row inmates and ordinary prisoners. Inside this prison, inmates are classified as according to a class structure known as the chit system. Food is scarce and devoid of nutritional value, and many have to get by with only one bowl of rice and vegetables. For those who prefer better meals, a hefty payment is always required. While the poor inmates are forced to get by on this pitiful meal, wealthier prisoners get access to better food in exchange for money. Because of this, poor inmates sometimes work under the wealthier ones just to make enough money to afford better nourishment. For 17 years, Alan John Davies was locked within these walls. A British citizen from Blackpool, England, Davies was one of the first foreigners to be imprisoned in Bang Kwang. It was in 1990 when he was first arrested while living and doing business in Thailand. According to police reports, Davies was suspected of drug trafficking, although he claims he was framed. After a highly publicized trial, the businessman was sentenced to death and was shackled just like the other inmates on death row. According to him, many of the others who received the same sentence died before the date of their execution. One minute a prisoner would be in the cell, and the next they would be snatched from their cells and executed with a machine gun. In certain instances, 24 inmates would be crammed into a small cell of just about 26 square meters. But not only was the space cramped, but it was also extremely dirty and unhygienic. Davies recalled getting a cut on his foot that became swollen to twice its size after getting infected with tap water. Things got so bad that his foot was almost amputated before it finally began to heal. As of today, Bang Kwang remains a place straight out of a nightmare. But the horrific experience is nothing compared to this Russian prison.
Gitarama Prison in Rwanda. To describe the Gitarama Prison in Rwanda would be an understatement. Imagine a world where prisoners have to feed on human flesh just to survive, where thousands of inmates are piled together like sardines. This is the reality of Gitarama, also known as the world's worst prison. Once you step inside, you'll find a swarming crowd of prisoners, men, women, and even children, all confined to this small space built for only 3,000 people. Today, over 8,000 inmates currently call Gitarama home, which has led to a dire case of overcrowding. Sleeping spaces are cramped, the entire facility is unhygienic, and the food and water supply is strained beyond capacity. Unfortunately, that's not where the horrors end. Hungry and desperate for a proper meal, the inmates would often descend on the bodies of deceased prisoners, devouring them just to stay alive. Although the Rwandan government has debunked these claims, stating that they're all mere fabrications, the inmates themselves tell a different story. Many of them started their journey here after the infamous Rwandan genocide of 1994. According to official documents, these convicts were rounded up and accused of murdering over 800,000 people within a period of 100 days. Whether they're guilty or not has never been proven, but one thing is sure, 90% of them are never making it out alive. Inside, you will find men struggling to find a place to sit or stand. Finding a sleeping spot here is another extreme sport due to overcrowding in the dilapidated facilities. Many inmates are forced to sleep in open latrines soaked in human sewage. These horrific conditions often lead to severe disease outbreaks, and in a place like this, it doesn't take long before an epidemic breaks out. Many of the prisoners here develop gangrene on their feet, and it's not uncommon to see rotting toes falling off after weeks of neglect. In addition, when you crank thousands of alleged criminals together in one place, tensions would definitely rise between them. Fights, gang violence, and targeted harassment is the order of the day here. It has gotten so bad that inmates frequently need medical help after getting beaten up by their fellow prisoners. Broken bones, bite marks, and severe injuries all make up about 38% of all hospital visits. In recent times, the government has attempted to reintegrate some of the inmates back into society. Efforts are also being made to rebuild the facility and improve the inmates' living conditions.
The only way to escape from Black Dolphin Prison is in a body bag. To the outsiders, the facility is known as Penal Colony Number 6. Russia's Black Dolphin Prison houses some of the country's toughest, most violent criminals, but for those locked within these walls, it's the closest thing to a death sentence. Black Dolphin Prison, which derives its name from the statue in front of the facility, is located in Soletsk, near the Russian border with Kazakhstan. As one of the oldest prisons in Russia, it was one of the first to accept prisoners serving life sentences. It was these prisoners themselves who crafted the Black Dolphin sculpture at the building's main entrance. As of today, over 700 of these convicts are currently serving time here. But these aren't just ordinary criminals. You see, Black Dolphin is where the Russian government sends the worst of the worst offenders. Murderers, terrorists, cannibals, and even serial killers all find their new home here. According to data, these criminals have killed a combined total of 3,500 people. That's about 5 murders per inmate. But unlike other prisons built for rehabilitation, Black Dolphin was built for brutal punishment. Each prisoner is housed within 3 sets of steel doors, more like a cell in a cell. In many cases, 2 inmates are forced to share a 50-square-foot cell for 90 minutes a day. They're allowed to exercise in a large cage. It's also during this period that the officers search them extensively for contraband and illegal items. Because of the nature of inmates housed here, the facility is placed under 24-hour surveillance. Every day, the inmates are forced to stand for 16 straight hours in their cell. They're forbidden from resting or sitting on their bunks until this period of punishment is over. To ensure that all inmates abide by these rules, guards make rounds throughout the cell every 15 minutes. Prison officials also have a unique way of transporting the inmates from their cells to other parts of the building. First, the prisoner is blindfolded, then they're bent over at the waist while a guard holds their handcuffed hands behind their backs just a little higher than the hips. This way, the prisoner isn't able to map out his surroundings or plan an escape. As for the food, Black Dolphin prisoners are fed soup and bread 4 times a day. But unlike other prisons, Black Dolphin doesn't feature a cafeteria. Instead, inmates are forced to take their meals alone in their cells. Because of this, many of them often go weeks or months without interacting with other prisoners. What's more, the facility also doesn't feature a prison yard. Think just pacing back and forth in a large hollow cell with no windows. For their entertainment, these prisoners are allowed to read books, newspapers, and even listen to the radio. Many high-profile criminals are currently incarcerated in this facility. Nikolai Asanov is one of them. His crime, murdering an entire family in cold blood and burning their remains in the forest. Then there's Vladimir Nikolov, a Russian murderer serving time for cannibalism. Nikolov was said to have killed a man during a drunken fight, and then he dragged him into his bathroom and chopped him up. Because of how gruesome these crimes are, Black Dolphin guards often refer to the inmates as lesser than animals, which apparently justifies the inhumane treatment. But while Black Dolphin is regarded as the harshest in the world, this next African prison takes things to a whole new level. Since it was first opened in 1854, San Quentin has housed some of the worst criminals across America. Now, over 170 years later, it's not just the oldest prison in California, but also one of the most dangerous. As the only Californian correctional facility with an execution chamber, San Quentin is where convicted murderers, terrorists, and serial killers spend their last days. Here, the cells are as small as a walk-in closet or a small bathroom, but despite the small size, 2 men are often forced to share the same cell using a double bunking system. Within this 11 by 4 foot cell, you'll find a simple bunk bed as well as a stainless steel toilet without a lid. Behind the bed is a metal sink and a minimal table in the back corner. Moving around in these cells without hitting the wall or the bed takes a lot of skill.
Although the cell size is in violation of the standard rule set by the American Correctional Association, it's been that way for so long that it'll likely never be changed. While it was built to house just 3,084 prisoners, over 4,000 were crammed into the space prior to 2020. We know it sits on some of the most valuable land in the Bay Area with views of the San Francisco Bay, but also because of some of the state's most infamous inmates. Charles Manson, Scott Peterson have served time there. However, following the coronavirus outbreak, measures were put in place to reduce that number significantly. After spending between 10 to 16 hours daily in this small space, many of these inmates have developed severe mental illnesses. Claustrophobia, depression, and anxiety all plague their minds. But that's not even the worst part. Death row inmates are subjected to the strictest measures possible. In the past, all convicts sentenced to death in California were held in San Quentin, but that changed in May 2024 when many of them were moved to the general population in other California prisons. As of the making of this video, only about 21 death row inmates remain at the facility. These individuals are currently divided into 3 sections. There's the quiet North segregation for prisoners who don't cause trouble. There's the North Block on the 4th floor where death row inmates were first housed. Then there's the East Block, a crumbling, leaky maze where the worst of the worst offenders are housed. Here, inmates often launch deadly attacks, throwing bodily waste at both fellow inmates and prison guards. Some of these attacks also take a violent turn. Prisoners sustain injuries which are sometimes fatal during these fights. Prison violence isn't an uncommon sight in San Quentin. According to some guards, fights can erupt over the slightest offenses. Some are targeted, while others are simply random. However, the most disturbing aspect of this case is the racial segregation that goes on within this prison. On the outside, it appears that all prisoners are treated equally, but those on the inside know that things operate differently here. As a matter of fact, all interactions within San Quentin are divided along racial lines. According to inmate Lee Haggerty, it's nothing but racism in here. The showers and toilets are divided, one for whites, one for blacks. Even the living areas are segregated by race. Black inmates don't trespass into white spaces, while white prisoners also stay on their side of the border. Failure to keep to this arrangement often leads to bitter battles and brutal attacks. Inmates of different races also don't share food, and even simple tasks like getting a haircut have to be done by people of your own race. Newcomers often find this system confusing, and many are pushed around in their early days in the facility, but after a while, they all get the hang of it. The prison is so overcrowded that even the gym has been converted into a massive cell with beds arranged across the space. The rehabilitation part of this prison has been long forgotten now. Those who find themselves here only fight for survival, especially since many of them will never see the light of day ever again. Before we go on, here's our subscriber pick for today. As we explore a list of prisons that are worse than death, check out this image of an inhumane prison which surfaced on the internet. These inmates, covered in tattoos, appeared to be gang members, but why are they held in cages and suspended over water? Since there's no follow-up information about this image, it's hard to draw any conclusions about its authenticity. Do you think prisons like these really exist? And if they do, is it morally acceptable to subject humans to this kind of treatment? As always, share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Now, let's get back to more disturbing prisons.
Colorado, located in Fremont County, Florence is an infamous prison renowned for its brutality. Officially known as ADX Florence, Alcatraz of the Rockies is built in a remote section of Colorado where America sends some of its most dangerous offenders. While only about 344 inmates are currently serving their sentences in ADX Florence, the majority of these inmates used to be on the FBI wanted list. There's El Chapo Guzman, considered to be one of the greatest drug kingpins in history. After escaping from 2 maximum security prisons in Mexico, El Chapo was finally caught and extradited to the US, where he couldn't build a tunnel or bribe his way out of prison. There's also Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, who delivered mail bombs to several prominent US citizens between 1978 and 1995. Inside ADX, you will also find Zacarias Moussaoui, an al-Qaeda conspirator who played a key role in the 9/11 attack. Other dishonorable mentions include Eric Rudolph, the Atlanta Olympics bomber, Ramzi Youssef, the 1993 World Trade Center terrorist, and Michael Swango, a doctor who poisoned and killed about 60 patients. You see, prisoners don't just get sent here for committing petty crimes. Getting locked away in ADX is proof that the inmate is a hardened criminal. We're talking gang bosses, cop killers, serial murderers, and even deranged criminals who pose a danger to themselves and others. Most of the inmates here suffer from severe mental illness. To keep the prisoners and guards safe, many of these inmates spend about 23 hours in solitary confinement every single day. It's so bad that the United Nations has classified this treatment as torture. While other correctional facilities use solitary confinement as a way to discourage bad behavior, it's the actual way of life in ADX. These inmates don't just spend hours or days kept away from the rest of the population. Instead, they remain there for months and even years. The cells at ADX are usually only about 7 by 12 feet wide. The prisoners are surrounded by concrete wall all day, every day. All sense of community is killed here. There are no dining halls, so inmates get their food through a slot in the cell door. Their only view of the world is through a tiny window aimed at an empty sky. It's a sad way to live, but many of the people in ADX deserve to be there. Because of the way the prison is built, inmates are not able to learn the layout of the prison. This way, no one can map out an escape route or plan a prison break. Since ADX was first opened in 1995, no prisoner has ever escaped from the facility. That's partly due to the extreme measures taken to ensure the prisoners don't have access to weapons. Anything that can be used to harm others is forbidden here. The cell furniture is made of solid concrete and cannot be moved. You've got a concrete writing desk, a concrete chair, and for a bed, a concrete slab with a thin foam pad on top of it. As for the bathroom, ADX cells feature a combination of a toilet and a sink. The shower only turns on 3 times a week and it's automatic. If a prisoner exhibits good behavior, they're allowed to buy a small black and white television with a built-in radio. They can also get access to books and magazines from the prison library. Most inmates also get 15 minutes a month to speak with their close family members on the phone. As for visits, inmates are allowed to see their loved ones 5 times a month, but under very strict circumstances. Every day, these inmates get just 1 hour of exercise. They're handcuffed, their feet are shackled, and then they're either led to an empty room or taken to the yard outside. There, they're locked in a cage and until their hour of grace is over. But not all parts of ADX are this bad. As a matter of fact, there are 6 different security levels in the prison. The better an inmate's behavior gets, the lesser the level of punishment they're exposed to. In some cases, certain prisoners have even been moved from the Supermax prison to other less strict facilities. But even for those who manage to escape the horrors, the mental effect of solitary confinement stays with them for the rest of their lives.